All right, let's see if this Ash of War does something. Hey-o, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Listen, we're going to be showing you a big chonky boy build. It is going to be, in my opinion, an unkillable build if you play this right and play behind your shield with the weapons that I have chosen here for this build. So, if that is something that interests you, stick around, sit back, relax, enjoy the build video, and let's get into it. So in this particular build, you are going to be focusing heavily on poise and playing behind your shield. This is one of those builds where you can sit back and just guard counter the entire time, one-shotting the majority of any enemy that you find within this game, minus bosses, of course, but it relies on a very few key items. So let's get into it. We got the talismans that we're going to look at first. The first one is going to be the Great Jar's Arsenal. This is going to vastly raise your maximum equip load. This is very, very important because the armor that we're using is very bulky, very big, and we are going to be using a heavy load in this build just because that's how things worked out with all the armor and the weapons and the shield that we're using. The heavy load is just what happens. So you're not going to be rolling at all, but you don't need to because you're going to be sitting behind that shield, getting the guard counters off super quickly, and it's absolutely phenomenal. The second talisman we're going to be using is going to be the Tree's Favor +1. This is going to raise your maximum HP, stamina, and your equip load, all three things that we need in order to make this build as great as possible. The third talisman is going to be the Great Shield Talisman. This is going to boost your guarding ability. Like I said, we're going to be sitting back behind our shield. We need as much guarding ability as possible, and if we can get that boosted, that's a win for us. Finally, the fourth slot is going to be the Amber Medallion Talisman. This is going to vastly raise your maximum stamina. Now, I will say this, if you want to fool around with the last talisman in this row, you can switch this between a few different talismans. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want this to do, but for right now, I'm using the stamina, which is going to raise that maximum stamina because every time your shield gets hit, it's going to chip away slowly and surely at that stamina. The other ones that you could potentially use for this build is you could use the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman +2, which is going to vastly boost your physical damage negation. Also a really, really good talisman to use in this particular instance. And you can equip the Bull Goat's Talisman, which is also going to raise your poise by a considerable amount. I believe it raises it by almost 30. So if you want more poise and you want to be able to just battle your way through getting attacked no matter what happens, then the Bull Goat's Talisman is a great one here for you as well. And the last talisman that you can cycle through here is going to be the Green Turtle Talisman. This is going to raise your stamina recovery speed. If you're finding that all the talisman that I just listed is not quite doing it for you when you're kind of fooling around with this particular build, then you can get that recovery speed because that's going to be very, very important, especially when your stamina bar is being chipped away by how many times you're going to be hit during the shield blocks and the shield counters, so on and so forth. So those are the talisman that I would definitely use, but as of right now, the four that I've chosen, the Great Jar's Arsenal, the Tree's Favor, Great Shield Talisman, and the Amber Medallion +2. For the armor, we're rocking some pretty chunky gear. We're rocking the Bull Goat Helm, which is going to raise our poise. We're also going to be using the Tree Sentinel armor, which is going to raise that poise even more. For gauntlets, we're going to be using the Tree Sentinel gauntlets. They're going to match the rest of the gear, and it also is going to raise that poise. And then lastly, our final piece of gear is the Bull Goat Greaves, which, once again, we're a poise monster. It's going to raise that poise up, and it's going to give you a ton of armor and keep you from getting utterly crushed. I'm a new game +4 right now, so people are starting to hit decently hard. So with these four pieces of gear, with this armor, you're going to look great, and you're also going to be a damage-negating monster, and it's going to be phenomenal. Now for the weapon. Right now, we're using the Ruins Greatsword +8. I would level this higher, but I don't have the stones currently, but +8 on new game +4 is doing the trick for me. It's got a strength rating of A, with physical damage being phenomenal at 267 +395. Also, we can add in a little bit of magic damage in there at 79 +11, and its Wave of Destruction Ash of War is super, super great for clearing a ton of ads really fast, but because we're not going to be really using this as a main weapon when it comes to our Ash of War, we are going to be using the Heavy Fingerprint Stone Shield in our offhand, and we're going to be using this Ash of War, which in this particular instance, since we're playing around our shield, is going to serve us a lot better. We're going to be using the Shield Crash Ash of War on this shield. It's going to allow you to plant the shield on the ground, charge through a bunch of enemies, and then throw an enemy up in the air at the very, very end. It is great. I absolutely love it. It just gives me the sense that I'm a phalanx moving forward slowly but surely and just crushing through the enemies. Now, with this shield, you're also going to have a little bit of a physical damage. So if you wanted to hit with the shield, I'm not really sure why you would, but you can also do that as well. And it does have a strength rating of B. So once again, going back to that strength Phalanx type poise monster that we're creating, this is going to work out really, really great for you. Now, there are a few more weapons that you could use if you decide to do this. I am basically putting all of my points when it comes to levels into vigor, endurance, and strength, so any of those weapons that kind of really play off of those skills well, you can use with this build. So the weapon that I'm going to show you that is not the Ruins Greatsword is actually going to be the Beastman's Heavy Curved Sword plus 25. This is a really, really fast weapon, and because the rest of you is really slow, it is kind of nice to sit there and hit and swing really quickly with a weapon in case the situation calls for it. With a strength rating of A, this weapon has done phenomenal for me when I've needed it, and I've also put the Barbaric Roar Ash of War on it just to make sure that I can get that strength rating as high as I possibly can. The physical damage is 237 plus 344, so definitely a great weapon if you're planning on using a one-handed weapon that is not a big, bulky two-hander as a one-handed weapon. And then the third weapon that we can use with this build, if you're trying to be the chunkiest of boys, is the Heavy Giant Crusher. Now, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. When you equip this weapon with this shield, with this armor, it's just broken. It's absolutely broken. You do so much damage. You are not having any damage done against you because of the shield. And when you have a shield counter go off, the heavy attack of this weapon just clears out mobs. It is really strong, really powerful, and one of the best strength weapons in the entire game. With a strength rating of S, its physical damage is going to be 330 plus 548, which is massive. And I also put on the Earthshaker Ash of War just to make this weapon as good as I possibly can. So with those three weapons, you should have no problem crushing through enemies, getting a bunch of damage off, and killing bosses reasonably quick. So there's only a few more things we need to talk about before this build is actually complete, and these are going to be the best summons that I think you are going to be using in this particular build. Now, because you are big and chonky and you are not going to be rolling around, you need a summon that is quick, you need a summon that can put out some damage, and you need a summon that's going to stay alive long enough for you to continue to hit the boss or hit the NPCs or whatever you may be doing while they can also help you. So the first up, obviously, Black Knife Tiche. Black Knife Tiche is still the most overpowered summon ever. Absolutely phenomenal. In and out, and she's all over the place. She has an amazing Ash of War that ticks down health over time. So on big boss fights that are going to be a little bit longer, she is going to be the absolute necessity for you with this build. The next summon you can be using is the Banished Knight Oleg plus 10. Now, Banished Knight Oleg, in my opinion, if you're not using the Mimic tier or Black Knife Tiche, I think he is the best summon in the entire game. He has 2 swords, he has frost damage, he has a ton of combos that he does, and he is big and bulky, so he's not going to die immediately when you put him out. I would highly recommend this summon if you haven't gotten the Black Knife Tiche yet, or you don't want to use a Mimic tier but would rather use an actual summon in its place. Now for our third and final summon slot that we are using is going to be the Black Flame Monk Ammon at plus 10. Now, this is not the normal summon that I would currently think to use, but because I am so tanky and I can take all of the aggro from the boss or from the NPCs, Ammon can sit back with his really powerful Black Flame spells and do a lot of damage over time, and also stay alive for a really long time because I have the majority of the aggro. I find him really, really good. He's a breath of fresh air when it comes to summons because he's not one that I really feel like gets a lot of recognition, but as you can see from this boss fight, he actually does a decent amount of damage, especially when he gets the damage over time tick going. So definitely check him out. I highly recommend it. All 3 of these are excellent for this particular build. Try them out and let me know what you think. And the very last thing that we're going to be using before I let you guys go is the Flask of Wandering Physic with the lead-in hard tier in it, which temporarily boosts your poise, and the Opaline Bubble tier, which is going to significantly negate damage received. So, with that being said, guys, you should have everything you need to have the biggest, chunkiest tank boy build that you can possibly imagine in this game. Try it out. Let me know in the comments how you like it. And per usual, until next time, have fun with the game, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.